You want to do some stretches, do some warm-ups, get yourself spry and limber for the task at hand. Hello again, everyone. Nuri here, back again for another video. I am HCA's art director and program instructor in the Antelope Valley. I teach art classes to communities in both Palmdale and Lancaster, as well as making these online videos for HCA Live. Today's video is going to be less of a step-by-step instructional video and more of a process video. This is going to be a time lapse where you can just see how I approach this subject matter, and you're more than welcome to follow along if you'd like. There are some parts that are sped up. It might be a little bit tricky to see those things, but if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the comments or pause the video, and at the very least you can get a general overall sense to how I tackle a subject that's a little bit, perhaps let's say, more complicated than what we've been tackling over the past few videos. And for today's project, we are going to be making a profile portrait of a person, also known as a side view. For this particular project, I found an image which was royalty-free, stock image on Google search. I urge you though to find or to use a photograph or an image of somebody personal, someone you know, even yourself, for a self-portrait. It makes the project that much more impactful. I originally intended or wanted to do a portrait of a youth or a child, something exuberant that speaks to the future generations. And for that, I really wanted to use one of the students I teach as reference. However, given the certain circumstances, it's a little bit tricky getting in touch with people these days, and so I just opted to find a royalty-free image online. But once again, if you do have photographs or your own personal imagery at hand, I would urge you to use that. If for whatever reason you don't, or you're having just difficulty finding something else online that you want to use, magazine, books, any type of reference that you can use will work as well. Whatever image you decide to use, photograph or stock photo from online, here's what you're going to need to complete this project. First, a pencil. HB number 2 pencil will work great. If you have a mechanical pencil, sure, that will work as well. And any other pencils, graphite you might have laying around, we could use all of that. But if you just have a regular old pencil, that'll do fine. With that pencil, you will need an eraser. If you have a larger standalone eraser, perfect. If you just have the one that is on the tip of your pencil, that's cool too, just as long as it doesn't leave like those brown streaky marks or it's old or too hard or rips the paper. Next up will be a piece of paper. Once again, a regular old piece of paper will do. Most of the time I have, if I don't want to use a nice piece of watercolor paper or something like Bristol board, I will just go for a 8.5 by 11 piece of computer paper, multi-use. Lastly, a marker or paint, I suppose, of your choosing. Just one color, whatever that color is. I'm going to be using orange at the end of the video, but if you want to use your personal favorite color, that is up to you. A couple more things of note I should mention before we jump in. I will be working digitally for this process video. Although I mentioned pencil and paper, when I was doing this project originally, it was a little bit difficult for the camera to pick up a lot of the lighter lines and shading that were going to be necessary to complete this project, and so I opted to move to a digital format. Now, working digitally on my tablet, I was using a tool that it basically replicates and is a number 2 brush, albeit digitally. Therefore, how I approach the process and how it's done is no different than how I would be working if I was working analog. If things might seem a little bit jumpier because the way things are captured digitally, but for the most part, the process should be the same. We are going to actually be starting off with a quick little warm-up exercise of a few different strokes, how to make different marks, add some tone and some value and some depth to our drawing. This is kind of a little bit of a review for something that we've done in previous videos. However, each one of these techniques is going to be employed in the portrait that we will be rendering. So I figured it'd be a good way to A, review those things, and also B, warm up a little bit Drawing and painting, I find, is a lot like any other exercise. You want to do some stretches, do some warm-ups, get yourself spry and limber for the task at hand. I think that pretty much covers everything, so let's just go ahead and jump right in. To start our warm-up exercise, we are going to begin by drawing 5 circles. Do not worry if your circles are not perfect. We just need something that resembles a circular shape to fill in with different types of marks and shading. Each one of these we're going to be using in the subsequent drawing. So right here I'm starting off with just regular hatching. These are just marks, generally all going in the same way. Next up, we have cross hatching. You're going to do marks just like you did with regular hatching, except afterwards you're going to start doing another set of lines that usually intersect diagonally, and you can even overlap another set of lines that will add some more density. The one that happened real quick, that was just a scribble line. So it's just a bunch of swirls that's meant to build up density. Next up, on the 4th one, we have contour lines. These follow the shape of whatever you're drawing. And lastly, this one's going to take a while, we do have stippling. Stippling is a great way to build up density. The only downside is it takes a while. This is made just by doing a bunch of dots in one area. Wherever you want to be darker, build up more dots, and if you want it to be lighter sections, then you would just do a few dots in between. Okay, our warm-up exercise is out of the way, so we're going to jump into the drawing. We're going to start off with another circle, or rather an oval, to give us the shape of the head. This is just a great place to start filling in some of the details. For a profile image, I want to do a slight angle, and that's where the brow is going to go. And then while looking at my reference image, I'm going to start to sketch in the other kind of landmarks of the face, including the nose, lips, hair at a certain point. And none of this needs to be set in stone. These, although I'm sketching them out, they're mostly types of guidelines. Once again, I'm referencing my image that's going to just kind of inform where the placement is. A lot of the placement could change, but it's helpful to get some of these landmarks in the right place to get started, so then you can start adding in your values and textures that's going to create the drawing. So what you're seeing right now is I'm kind of fine-tuning the face. I got the eye placed in there, and I'm using pretty much, I'm not going too far into shading, but I am using hash marks here to kind of add in the value in some of the darker regions. As I've said, and probably will say for a number of areas, we're going to be retooling and reshaping those things. A lot of drawing is pushing and pulling and really getting something to work the way you want it to. That's going to happen repeatedly with the nose, and as you build in, once again, a lot of those landmark features that are very indicative of what a face or a profile would look like. If you need to erase, there's no shame in it. Erase all you want. And once you have the face, or at least the major kind of features of the face, in a place where you would like them, then it's okay to start building up a lot more of the shading. Once again, to do this shading, we are going to be employing most, if not all, 5 of those texture or those line marks that we made during the warm-up at the beginning of the video to fill in and flesh out this portrait. Mostly it's going to be hash marks until we get to the hair, and then we're going to just be doing a lot of kind of the scribbling in, which is a great way to fill in areas quickly, but also very densely. So at this point, we're still fine-tuning and adjusting things on the lips. The nose, once again, is one of those really big profile features, so you want to make sure that the angle's right. And there will be a lot of back and forth. And at any area, although I recommend not really going into too much detail until you know those areas are right, the part of the hair that I shaded in there is mostly just to kind of give me a sense for what the drawing is going to look like. If there's any areas like that that you feel Doing a little bit more to completion will give you a better roadmap, then feel free to do so. All in all, I think it took me the better part of an hour to sketch out this particular portrait. If you're doing something that perhaps you're giving away or you want as a present, or I would recommend spending more time on it to get all these values of shading of light and dark. It takes a while to honestly see all those areas and then prescribe the right values. And we didn't really cover it in the first part, but in case you're wondering, values that I'm referring to basically light and dark. So there's different, by pressing harder, obviously you're going to get a darker line. By pressing lighter, you'll get a softer line. And if you're looking at an image, particularly a photograph, you can see, if you kind of quarantine a certain area, that you can kind of see where those areas of light and dark are. And that's going to really add to the depth of your image. By going through your drawing and adding in areas of larger density or more line weight where there is darker areas, like you see I'm kind of doing using these hash marks on the cheek right now to kind of add some more definition to the face, add where the shadows would be. That's a way that you can sort of build up your image to create something that looks perhaps a little bit more lifelike or more real as far as your subject matter is concerned. At this point of the drawing, I'm pretty confident most of the features are where they need to be. So it's going to be a lot more of just filling in these areas, going in certain parts of where you see darkness, kind of the recess where the bridge of the nose is by the eye. You'll see a lot of shading there. And start to fill in the cheek areas and continue to add value. And the darker you make in some areas, it's going to contrast more with the lighter areas, which is going to make it look more lifelike. Ears clearly have a lot of recesses and cavities. So now I think the face is pretty well fleshed out. We can start doing the hair, and doing that is just a series of hash marks to fill in quickly, and kind of toy around with clothing, and so he's not just a floating head. We do want to give the suggestion of a bust, or at least something that's a little bit more, grounded. So once we have that in place, we can start going over the hair. Now, to do the hair in this particular case, I was employing the kind of the squiggly circular line technique. This took a while to do, is probably the most of the time, but it's just scribbles over scribbles over scribbles to give it some nice thickness and some nice depth and make it a lot more rich. Having the darker hair and eyes and some of the shadows under lips and necks kind of contrasts with the skin tone. It's a different texture, which is great. And so the face is looking nicely fleshed out, so we can start to add in some more details on the clothing. And at this point, generally be kind of bouncing around a little bit and filling in the areas I feel that need more shadow or more definition. This particular part with the clothing, not necessary. If you want to add a lot of texture or go into more detail with the clothes, that's great. And that will obviously depend on whatever source image you're choosing or photograph. For this one, I'm just continuing some of this line texture and contour by doing some vertical lines here. Going to flesh that out a little bit more and give some more contrast. Yeah, and now I'm going back up into the neck and kind of soften that transition between the hairline, add some more shadow by the jaw and where the neck is, and just keep building up. I'm continually using the hash marks over my existing hash marks, and you can see that builds up a nice density, and it's a great way to add some more value to your piece. And by pressing softly but firmly, you can go ahead and add in any, if you want to darken areas. You don't want to press too dark, but the residual effect of adding more and more marks, whether they're hash marks or just soft curly scribbly lines or cross hatching, that's going to build up, and you'll get this effect kind of in layers of it being darker. For the hair, because it's so dark, it's kind of fine to jump in there and just kind of scribble your way away and make the line dark. But for something doing something like the face, that's a bit softer in features and has a different texture, you want to do that. You really want to try and build that up in layers the best you can. And after some time of building up these layers, you'll get to a place where you're happy with the portrait. At that point, you generally want to go back in and add in any more details, perhaps some lines you missed, add some more value, just give it some more texture in any areas. Like here, I'm just adding to the shirt area a bit underneath the turtleneck. And that should about do it. This drawing's getting near completion. And as this is a very nice black and white sketch, occasionally what I'll do is add in a pop color. So I'm choosing orange here, but you can go ahead and jump into any color you like. And I start by outlining around the image and then just kind of filling in. This is going to be a little bit more of a random angular shape. Yours could be a circle, a square, just anything to complement your image color-wise and graphically, style-wise, as far as that shape goes. And there we have it. Well, I do hope that you enjoyed watching this video and hopefully picked up some good tips along the way. As always, please do like and subscribe to HCA Programs YouTube channel. And as always, please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.